Today we're going to talk about something that all of you use all the time, your phone number. Your phone number is probably something that you've had for a very long time. Those of us who have mobile phones, which is pretty much everyone, has likely had that mobile phone number for a long time. We might have even taken it from carrier to carrier. But what does that phone number get? It gets us access to our friends. It gets us access to our accounts. It lets us know when our table is ready in a restaurant. All of these things give us optimal convenience, but as you know, they come with a lot of vulnerabilities. First, it's important for us to understand that the SIM card that we have in our phone, whether it is an eSIM or a physical SIM, is tied to the phone number that we're using. Most of us use the same phone number for our friends, for our financial accounts, for restaurants, for random mailing lists. We use that same phone number. That same phone number becomes the key to our lives. You might be asking, so what's the big deal? It's the key to my life. Well, it's because you expose yourself to a lot of threats. What are some of those threats? Let's take the case of Baby Al Capone. Baby Al Capone, if you can Google it or look at the link that I'm posting here, is the story of a kid who was 15 years old and used a technique called SIM jacking or SIM swapping to steal $20 million in Bitcoin. All he did was bribe an AT&T employee. This person was making 15, 20 bucks an hour, was susceptible to a bribe, and then was able to SIM jack this person. SIM jacking is when somebody takes over your cell phone account, meaning that all of the calls and text messages that were intended to you are now going to the person who SIM jacked you. In this case, Baby Al Capone was able to take over the phone of someone who had a lot of money in a Bitcoin account. They used that to reset their password, gain access to their account, and then start transferring all of the Bitcoin out. You think this is a wad-off? Well, look at all these other cases that I'm talking about here. Not only that, every year at DEF CON, a hacker conference that takes place in Las Vegas, they have something called a social engineering village, where they have people dedicated to proving that these security flaws exist in hopes of helping companies close these security flaws. Unfortunately, not all the time do these companies heed the warning of these security researchers. One such security researcher demonstrated this for a reporter on what I believe was Vice. You can look at the video right here. And this person took over the reporter's account within a matter of minutes and began transferring money from their bank account. Of course, this was all with the permission of the reporter. This can be done to you by anybody. For example, let's say you walk into a restaurant. Your table isn't quite ready, so they ask you for a phone number, and they're going to text you when your table is ready. What if you walked into that restaurant and the host that took your number doesn't like the shirt you're wearing? Or maybe you said something that host didn't like. They can now take that number and go to a carrier lookup website. A carrier lookup website tells you what carrier that phone number belongs to. Let's say they know you're one of the big three carriers. Then they can just walk into one of these stores and, just like Baby Al Capone, bribe one of the individuals to take over your account. Once they've taken over your account, they have every text message and incoming call going to them instead of you. What they will do is then they'll find your financial institution simply by enumerating every single possible one and trying them, or maybe they're going to do a little bit more targeted research on you using a data aggregator, and there's going to be a video on data aggregators later. And now you see something as simple as walking into a restaurant with a t-shirt that somebody is alike can lead to severe disproportionate consequences of this day and age. This should show us that there's no reason why the people we care about the most, our financial institutions, restaurants, and random mailing lists should all have our same phone number. Well, what do I do if I want to take part in all these things, but you're telling me that my phone number is very vulnerable? Well, here's what I do. I'm glad you asked. First, familiarize yourself with the concept of voice over IP, or VoIP for short. VoIP just takes the form of an app on your phone that allows you to make calls from another phone number. There are various VoIP providers. Here are just some examples. Different providers offer different features. Some providers allow you to have phone numbers from different countries. Some providers allow you to have multiple phones on the same account. Other providers give you a free phone. Use whatever is convenient for you. What I like to do is I like to separate myself into 4 or more phones. For example, there's one phone that I get to all of my friends and family, the people who need to reach me immediately, all of you, people whose calls I would answer immediately. Next, I have a phone number dedicated specifically to all of my banking institutions or anything that's an account that I control. Now, big asterisk here, some banks will not accept VoIP numbers for verification, and they require still your SIM card phone number. Sometimes you might have to give up your SIM card phone number and you have no choice. That's just how it works. But here we're mitigating that, eliminating all of our vulnerabilities. The third phone number I have is a phone number I use for random things, like mailing lists, like that restaurant, like discounts that require a phone number for you to get. Then I have a fourth phone number. This phone number is a phone number that I use for people who I might want to eventually give my real number to, but I'm not so sure yet. Sort of, you're in a little bit of limbo there, so I use my fourth limbo phone number. You're able to have a nearly unlimited number of phone numbers, provided you're willing to pay for it. Now, what I like doing as well is I like having different phone numbers for every single encrypted messaging app that I'm using. And we'll have a whole other video on encrypted messaging apps. For example, my WhatsApp phone number is different than my Signal phone number. My Signal phone number is different from my Telegram number. All those numbers are different. That way, there isn't a single point of failure for me, and you can get in touch with me in any number of avenues. We'll have a whole video again talking about encrypted messaging apps. Some of you might be saying, listen, I'd had my phone number for 20 years and I don't want to let go of it. Well, here's the good news. You don't have to. There's a concept called porting, P-O-R-T-I-N-G, whereby you take the phone number that is SIM-based, meaning the one that you have on your SIM card that your carrier has given you that you've had for 20-some-odd years, and you can transfer it to a voice-over IP provider. Take into account that not all voice-over IP providers are created equal. Some providers may not be around in 3 months because they're startups. Others are large corporations that will probably be around for a while, but they lack that privacy that you need. But they give you security. Remember, privacy and security are at opposite ends of the spectrum for the most part. So what I like doing is, I like taking that number that I've had since 1999, and I've ported it to a very long-standing, secure company that, while they may not be private, they will likely be around in 20, 30 years. That phone number, I actually just leave it dormant. I no longer use that number that I've had for 20 years. All of my friends and family have my new phone number. They have all my encrypted messaging app phone numbers, and I just keep that number in case anyone ever wants to reach me or to keep track of any kind of phishing attempts. So to recap, we want to have 4 voice-over IP numbers. The first number is the one that you give to your friends and family. They're going to text you, they're going to call you, and they will have no idea that they're actually talking to a voice-over IP number. The second number is a number that you're going to use for all of your accounts, for your bank account, for anything that actually has to do with you in real life. The third number is sort of a throwaway number that you're going to use when you go to a restaurant, when somebody asks you for a phone number in order to buy a muffin, because that's how it's going these days. And then the fourth phone number is that gray zone, that limbo number that you might want to give to someone who might eventually be a good business contact or even become a friend, but you're not quite sure that you want to let them into your inner circle just yet. Then for those of you who want to keep your phone number, remember the concept of porting. It allows you to change your SIM-based phone number to a voice-over IP provider. Now that you've made the jump to voice-over IP, let's go over that restaurant scenario again. You walk into the restaurant with a t-shirt that somebody doesn't like. The host goes to a carrier lookup website and they look up that phone number. They're going to come back to a voice-over IP provider. Dang, there's no such thing as a store for these providers. They can't walk up into a store and get information on you, so they can't SIM jack you. They would have to engage in a very sophisticated effort, as some have. But unless you think that someone of this level is going after you, this technique will work perfectly. You will have a lot more privacy, a lot less spam, and you'll be less susceptible to fraud.